Hello, beautiful people. I'm Marikita Solis, vegan empowerment coach, and I'm excited today because I'm here with Andrew Alexander, producer of Creating a Vegan World documentary. So this is a big night for me. Um, I've been I connected with Andrew on LinkedIn, and I saw his beautiful documentary, the trailer for it, and it's coming out soon enough. And I want to hear more about this and Andrew's vegan story. So thank you all for joining. Whoever's watching now live or on the replay, please give StreamYard permission to use your name. And if you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe to my channel. So, Andrew, tell the folks about, well, tell us first about you and what you're doing right now in your documentary, please.
Absolutely. So about 18 months ago, I was trying to start a vegan business. I want to do a vegan subscription box with all natural sources of B12, calcium, vitamin D, iron, zinc, right after I went deficient because I wasn't taking my B12 tablets as a vegan for 3 years at that time. And it just wasn't really taking off. I was hitting all these obstacles. And one day I made a post in a Sydney, Australia vegans group with a makeshift movie poster saying, "Hey, I have this idea. I'd like to film a documentary called Creating a Vegan World." And out of my 10 years in business, creating products, writing books, this probably has been the most positive feedback that I've gotten in my entire life for something. And just the support was amazing. An interior designer reached out to me saying, "Hey, I'd love to be interviewed for your film." Someone offered their music he wrote to be in the soundtrack or the credits, and people are offering left and right. There's hundreds of responses, hundreds of votes, and so I was like, okay, from my entrepreneurship perspective and just from feeling good on the inside, like this just seems like the path I'm meant to take. So what I was really interested in the beginning was less about having another documentary about promoting veganism to the masses, but this is more about having existing vegans, or whether you're environmentalist or you care about another issue such as women's rights, child slavery. How do we make a massive impact in the world? So back when I went vegan around 2017, 2018, I noticed there's a lot more vegan restaurant menu options, supermarket options. And then over the years to come, just veganism, plant-based was growing and flexitarianism was growing. So I was more curious about why this was happening. Like in my instance, I just know that something doesn't just go viral in the media by itself. There's something big going on behind the scenes that causes these shifts throughout all areas of society. So that was my original focus. But now, after interviewing about 75 leaders in the vegan movement, such as Dr. Clapper, Dr. Esselstyn, Emma Hurst, she's a member of parliament here in Sydney, Australia, material innovators, vegan psychologists, vegan social media influencers, people from all different areas of society, I learned what happens to create veganism trend throughout the mainstream and what we can do now to really accelerate the transition to plant-based agriculture and factory farming. And so I did those Zoom interviews for my documentary. Then I just reached the stage this year to upgrade my Zoom interviews into something that could go on Netflix or Disney Plus or one of the streaming platforms. So I'm refilming a lot of them and putting the story together. So it's really about what we can do to leverage systems to create a vegan world. So the one thing I want to say is the example is Dr. Clapper, where a lot of people know his work about plant-based nutrition. He helps patients, probably prescribes diet first before pills in a lot of instances. But what I find interesting about him is he's going into medical schools with the goal of shifting the medical school system. This way, instead of just helping people one-on-one or helping a few doctors learn things, if the entire medical school system changes, we have thousands of doctors graduate every year, every couple of years, that could prescribe plant-based diets. So it's not those little tweaks that have massive leverage. One more example is Mark Winstein and Mark Perlmutter, the two vegan Marks, as I call them. I know them both personally, where there's new laws with investing, where in the past you had to be a wealthy person. Let's say you have to make $200,000 per year or have a net worth of $1 million to be an accredited investor. What that legal status allows people to do is invest in early stage businesses. Where people like us, let's say we make 100,000 a year, 50,000 a year, even 30,000 a year, we weren't allowed to invest in these early stage startups. So new equity crowdfunding laws allow anybody, regardless of income, United States, there's place in Europe, UK also, to invest in early stage startups just as little as $100. So if myself and 1,000 other vegans put in $100 each into a vegan company. That's $100,000 that we could fund with. And the statistic I learned is that us vegans in our retirement accounts and savings accounts, there's more than $3 trillion. If you include environmentally conscious people, there's $30 trillion in accounts. So now we have a way to funnel $3 trillion into the vegan economy. And I think $2 trillion of that is from unaccredited investors. So the film's really about how to leverage those new systems and have those unique angles to cause massive leverage, so we're not struggling to help do outreach and change everybody one-on-one.
Well, that's amazing. Yeah, because we've got to do something differently. I mean, things are not shifting. I mean, they're not shifting fast enough. And yeah, I had Mark on the show, Mark Winstein on the show, and he was that was one thing that I remembered. Just with $100, that's all you need. And yes, we had a lot of questions and answers. And so everybody that's watching, please let us know you're here. Hi, Trisha and Peg. And if you have any questions, because this is going to be a powerful documentary. And I feel like this is a start of many other possible documentaries. So let Andrew know what we want from him, right? Maybe in the future as another one, to create this wonderful shift. So I love what you're saying, that it's different in with these new concepts. I mean, really getting at this foundation that's got to be changed, because I think about in medical school, the amount of education for nutrition is so limited, and it's just such a small number. And then someone told me the other day that they don't even have to take it. The doctors or the pre-med students don't even have to complete it. So it's really, really sad. So this is crucial that we get at these foundations of the big business and in the health sciences to shift the way we think. I mean, we're so brainwashed. And,
Absolutely. And it's not just
yeah.
it's not just
Go
the
ahead.
medical schools. It's like every area of society. Where I have some friends from Colorado, where they come from a human resources, social worker background. But they realized that there's 700,000 workers in animal agriculture, and a lot of them are there because they're undocumented workers. They don't speak English as a first language, and they're victims of the industry too. So what they're doing is they're starting an organization to help those workers transition out of animal agriculture into sustainable jobs like hemp farming, or even if they want to work at a office job or something, they help people out there. I connected them with an activist from Canada, where he said there's a law in the Canadian immigration law where immigrants are not allowed to work in dangerous professions, and strip clubs are listed on the dangerous profession they can't work in, but yet they put them in slaughterhouses. So we mentioned medical schools, financial systems. It's even like one little law like that, or in the UK, they have a ruling that protects ethical veganism as a protected class. This way, if a children goes to school and the parents say they're an ethical vegan, by law, just like we can't discriminate against religion in the US, they have to serve them the vegan meal. So it's really all areas of society, and anybody who's listening, if, like the example, they work in human resources, job placement, anything, there's a way to like think outside the box and leverage these little systems.
Wow. Well, that's amazing. And I know are you in Australia?
Correct. I was born outside of New York City. I lived in Boulder, Colorado. My parents live in North Carolina. I'm American, but I'm currently in Sydney, Australia since probably around the pandemic started.
Okay. And so what's the difference? I mean, what would you say is the big difference being a vegan in Australia as compared to being a vegan over here in the States?
Great question. I went vegan about 6 months before I went to Lima, Peru to help fund start a vegan startup. So most of my vegan life, I've been in Peru or Australia. But if I could compare the three, Lima, Peru seems like many years behind the US and Australia when it comes to veganism. There's a lot of restaurants where they have maybe options where you could order like rice, corn, fresh vegetables, where if you're whole foods plant-based, it's great. But if it comes to like when I first flew back to the US after being in Peru for a couple of years, I went to Dunkin' Donuts and did the Beyond Sausage or all those different, like, I guess the junk food vegan options. Australia is pretty much on par with that, in my opinion.
Well, I know that Well, I think I was speaking to someone from India, and now I'm automatically used to think that India was more was friendlier towards vegetarian vegans, but now all the meat industries and the big business is just filtering into all countries, and where McDonald's is everywhere, and then our health is declining. Like my friend that I was talking to said that her family, I mean, used to be very healthy because they were eating these plant-based diets in India. But now that this big business has taken over, that of course the diseases are going up, and there's not the education that the people they're lacking. So it's so important. And how is the education over there? Would you say? Have you seen any greater kind of a difference in those areas in educating about plant-based nutrition in any ways?
Great question. It's hard to compare because of where I've been living, but I've been filming the animal rights activism community, so just um, in Sydney area. So a lot of them, they have like the families, they raise the vegan children, they make friends, and they start building these communities. So um, if I could talk about something I'm more knowledgeable about, that might be a little bit off from your specific question, but one woman, she has three vegan children, and one of them has been vegan since birth. The other had been vegan since the mother went vegan. And what she said is she educated her kids about compassion towards animals before she started going to preschool, elementary school, and all those different things. This way, the peer pressure in the school system, it doesn't have that same type of impact on their children as if probably when you were born or when I was born, I went to school, they taught about the food pyramid. We should eat white meat as opposed to red meat, where we absorbed that at a young age. And just before the podcast or this thing started, I was telling about my personal development coaching background, where we have similarities on that, where I was working with adults to help shift negative behaviors, negative habits, where it's so ingrained for like 2, 3, 4 decades of behaviors. It's so difficult to change. But in that instance, when they educate the child from the very beginning, it's hard to break those habits are formed. In those instances, they're positive habits. So in that instance, that's the strongest thing there. There's, of course, the street activism scene I've been filming a lot lately, and they're doing great parts here, going out every Sunday, every Saturday. They're protesting stores. They're doing pressure campaigns to pressure places like Hermes to drop crocodile skin. They're trying to ban live export. But there's one doctor I spoke with in Melbourne. I haven't been down that way yet, but he said 80% of the hospitalizations in the country could be prevented from lifestyle changes. So, of course, things like heart disease, diabetes, things like that. So he's trying to work with the national healthcare system to help fund his preventive medicine. So he has a retreat that goes on, I think it's 1 week, 4 times a year, where they teach plant-based cooking, they teach about plant-based diet, community, and like one-on-one nutritionist sessions. So this way, he's trying to get the government to fund that. So this way, instead of paying $50,000 for a heart surgery, the government might pay $3,000 for the education of the group. So um, that's the biggest education thing. But of course, these things are just like the standalone pockets within a much larger society, where a lot of people, it's pretty much what you see in the U.S., where the activism events, there's always that one teenage boy with a KFC coming up and making a scene out of it, or people scoffing at that. So we have a lot of work to do, but since those small pockets are there, we can learn from what's effective and then kind of come together as a community and help grow the vegan world.
Yeah, that's so true. And it's funny that you said that about the the young boy coming up with the KFC, or someone really trying to get a rise out of us. So have you done street activism, or have you been on the streets doing that, or what kind of activism have you done in the past? Or I mean, this is activism, but I wanted to know how you would handle someone that would do that to you.
Great question. So it's nice seeing people I know on here. I see Bianca join. So
Yeah.
the first time I saw someone I know on one of these streams. So big moment for me. So yeah, in 2017, when I went vegan, I didn't really vibe with the activism scene. I was very passive, avoid confrontation. I went to they're holding signs in front of slaughterhouse, handing out flyers at a concert, things like that. But I vibe more towards the business entrepreneur side, where I helped I was do marketing for a vegan startup called Veg Ready, where they sold ready-to-eat vegan meals that order on the internet, shelf stable. So it's really, in probably the last year, I was getting more involved with the activism scene here, mostly filming, a little bit of going out there, being the one doing the outreach. So what do they have? They have the pressure campaigns, like I said, where a lot of, I guess, activists, I feel they get burnt out trying to achieve this larger goal. So if you think the general holding up posters, like saying, go vegan, we don't see those micro goals along the way. So it really leads to, is what we're doing significant? But on the flip side of that, we say with the pressure campaigns, they choose one very specific target and they go after it. Target might be a bad word for this, but like for example, there's live export in Australia where they take, I think it's sheep or goats. My brain's going, it's still early in the morning here. But they pack them in cargo ships. They export them to the Middle East or China or wherever they go. And it's just horrible for the animals. So I attended a live export rally probably a month ago. And pretty much they went to town hall in Sydney. They had like hundreds of people show up. Politicians are speaking on the loudspeaker and just like really protesting against it. Then a couple weeks later, there's something in the social media saying if the Labor Party is elected, they will phase out live export. So in that instance, I see one activism event. Then shortly after it, it says one political party that's usually against it would start working towards that. With the Hermes banning crocodile skin from their luxury products, every Saturday they go out, they protest in front of Hermes, have them drop crocodile skin from their line of products. They haven't done it yet, but there's other companies around them like Chanel and a few other ones. They already pledged to do it. I saw something on Instagram today where another company's doing it. So those micro campaigns seem to be working. And then the interesting one is there's a lingerie protest. I think on Unchained TV, they had a lingerie protest documentary where women in lingerie or men just wearing their boxers, they stand out holding signs, getting attention. And pretty much in my marketing background, there's an AIDA formula: attention, interest, desire, action. So they grab their attention, then people are standing in front of them doing outreach, talking to the people who stop, starting to build interest there. And just a little bit at a time, you might not see it, but some people you get through to. But then there's the KFC eating teenagers where it makes good content to go viral on social media and bring more attention to it. But some people are harder to change than others.
Yeah, and what you said is so true, is that it's all those little interactions, right? We might think that it's not making an effect, but that one time that they saw you and maybe you spoke to them, and then that was just stuck in their mind way back there. It's in the it's laying down a path of new thought because of our brains, how everything we think is laying down a path. So once we bring in this new thought, then it can, if we have it enough, it'll take over the old thought. And that's when we shift.
Yeah. And there's communication skills are a big thing because I do online marketing, but like one-on-one, like sales or communicating influence, that's not really my experience. So I went to a Cube of Truth, and there's actually, I just remember there's 3 boys eating the KFC, coming up, mocking them. Then one of the activists goes up and does outreach, and one of the kids is triggered. He ran away. The other one just standing there. But the third one, he's brought to tears, just compassion towards the animals from this one person's outreach in less than 2 minutes. And actually, can't say too much about her work yet because she's really building a big movement behind the scenes. I'll talk about in the future. But she's really studied psychology, communication skills, and how to get through to people, shifting their perspective with just a few questions. So one thing she keeps saying to people is, what if it was you in the cages? Would you want your family members to do anything to rescue you? So if you start off by saying, looking out of the cages, you're stuck in a cage, you're about to get slaughtered, that shift of perspective and keeping it focused on something that matters to them, that helps a lot. And then just different little things about reframing it. Triggers a lot of people making comparisons to the Nazi Holocaust, where it's like, if it was your family in there, would being passive in your approach, would you do that, or would you do anything there? So that's her way of reframing things to motivate me and other people as activists to really take it to the next level and be more motivated. So it's about learning the communication skills and shifting perception. I'm not the expert, but there's other people out there. So if you struggle with getting your message through to people, learn from people who are already good at it. And it's like anything in life, like tying your shoe. You don't know how to do it in the beginning, but you get better at it, better at it, better at it. With my documentary, I'm editing the 5-minute segment about street activism. Like 5 of my video shots are just the lighting's too much. I got the wrong angle. So like I'm learning as I go, plugging in the new ones, and just gets better over time. So that's another way to avoid discouragement as an activist.
Yeah. Well, I love all these ideas, and it makes sense. What you're talking about, the communication is essential, right? I mean, like the coaching conversation is questioning, and letting people come to their own insights, and it's with gentleness. Because I know it can be very frustrating when we're holding an outcome that I'm going to talk to someone and they're going to change, and we're not taking into consideration that years of programming. And then one of my friends watched a video with me, and I said, well, what's keeping you from being vegan? And the answer was, well, I want to have a steak once a year. So it's almost the label of I've got to be 100% committed vegan. We can still decrease our meat consumption and up the plant-based and just let go of that and just do the best we can. And if people can feel free to be not judged, that just do the best you can. We'll have a conversation on the street, and is there any way you can bring more plants, into your diet where this is going to decrease what you saw in the video or something, so to give them something where they don't feel like they've got to do it 100% or they have to do it right now, but just to consider it, right? And with in a different way of speaking where you're supporting them, or if this resonates with you, how can I support you? Somehow we've got to shift it so it's a safe place. And even if you don't want to see it, that's fine. This is still a safe place. If you want to come back next week, we'll be here. Or here's my number. If you want it, take it. If not, then it's okay. But it's got to be safe for the people, because if it's not safe, we're not going to be heard. And that's where the frustration comes in.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
go
You
ahead.
actually bring up a good point. When you're saying like, what if you just reduce your meat consumption a little bit at a time? One of the biggest question marks in my mind, or to them, is getting an agreement as the vegan activism community, where there's 2 instances. One is there's the group of activists who are like, okay, just reduce meat consumption a little bit at a time, baby steps to get there. That's more practical approach or realistic approach. Then there's the idealistic approach where we shouldn't say just a little bit, it's either all or nothing, and just really focusing on it's the life of an animal that you're killing when you eat these products. And I spoke to hundreds of people, like I officially interviewed 75 of them, and there's no consensus. There's always people on both sides of the fence where people say, this is the right way, this is the right way. And another big one is the lab grown meat industry, where on the realist perspective, there's 7.9 billion people who are not vegan in this world. What's going to make them go vegan? Are we going to switch them to a whole food plant-based diet, everyone just like that? Or are we going to grow real meat from cells that don't involve animal slaughter? Where at the start of my documentary, that was 100% my approach, because people's habits don't change. But then I interviewed someone where he said 2 million animals were tested on for this industry. But another thing showed a study where the energy used to grow this lab meat is much more inefficient than animal agriculture as it is, because you have to grow the cells into muscle tissues, where that might be worse for the environment. So I don't have the answers, but like getting on the same page and realizing we're working towards a goal together, that's a big thing. And there's a lot of that infighting going around that if we solve that, we'd be more aligned and better. And my focus is I focus what I'm doing, what my passion is. I'm not the one that's going to go out to the kids on eating KFC at outreach and bring them to tears. That's not my specialty. For me, it's writing the book, creating the documentary, maybe starting another vegan business after this or whatever it is, where you have your podcast, you have your coaching, and other people, they post on social media. So once we find out what our unique role is, we focus on that. And I think with 97 million vegans, like if more people are activists, that's how we can get the real work done.
Yeah, you're right. Everybody has their place. Right now, my place is to empower people so they are not angry and communicating in a frustrating way where they come home and they just feel despair, continual despair that they haven't changed people, and just allowing people to be who they are. And so what's really important with what you're saying is, like, if we could all respect each other as vegans or plant-based or whatever people want to call it, to communicate through respect, and then we could come together instead of this, this fighting that's going on between us. We all have the same goal here for our planet. So if we could just have an agreement to be respectful and listen, we don't have to agree on everything. um, but it's so important to communicate and forget about our egos. That's where it gets a big old mess. I'm right and you're wrong, and then we've lost it. I mean, we've lost what we're doing. The mission is to support the planet and the animals and our health. And when we're going from our egos and fighting about who's right and who's wrong, and lost the whole goal, then what's the point of this? We're just counterproductive. And no wonder people think, look at those crazy vegans, look at those angry vegans. And that's the last thing I want them to think about me is I've got to be somebody that they want to be. Someone was talking about, like, how do I get them on this vegan team? I want to be on that team too. Well, it's not going to be by me judging them or shaming them. That's so counterproductive, and it's really sad. It's never my goal to make someone feel bad or get them to be vegan because they feel horrible, because then they're going to have to deal with the shaming and the guilt. My goal is for you to understand what's going on, to be enlightened, and now to shift and to be able to forgive yourself. If you feel like you need to forgive yourself, to be able to do that with gracefulness and to say, you know what, I didn't know, and it's okay. I did that. Now I'm doing the best I can, and I'm making a shift for this planet. So that's the key. Right there is it's good communication and loving yourself first. And so what was the initial moment that you realized you needed to change? I mean, what inspired you to change?
When I first went vegan,
Mm-hmm.
yes, I was at another interview where it's an interesting. People say health, animals, environment. For me, it was boredom. So I 2014, I built an internet business, an app company, and I achieved my personal goals in life. I got to travel. I was doing road trips across the U.S., backpack through Europe. Then I moved back to Boulder, Colorado for the third time in 2017. And I didn't have any like real community connections. It just, I met people traveling. We kept in contact online. And then one day I got bored and I went on meetup.com and I saw a vegan potluck at a Methodist church down in Denver. So I drive down there. I ate the delicious food. They welcomed me in. They said, okay, Andrew, we're having another potluck next week. Come here. Let's go out to this vegan Chinese buffet. Let's go hiking. And I slowly got worked into the community. Then there was a potluck every Saturday night in Boulder, Colorado, where I just went out. And the more I surrounded myself with the community of activists there, one day I woke up and I realized I haven't eaten meat for 3 weeks. I haven't had dairy for 3 weeks. And just like at that point, I didn't even try to go vegan. It just, when I surrounded myself with people who already were, it's like, just like good peer pressure. You just kind of naturally blend into their things. So, yeah, at that point, I saw all the documentaries about the ethical side of things, the environmental side of things. I was learning a little bit about the plant-based health, but yeah, just boredom and just that sense of community like welcomed me in. So when you mentioned like if you shame people into it, people resist it. But like if there's a positive emotion they're going for, I know in my marketing background, there's like I think 8 core biological drivers: the need to avoid pain, to seek pleasure, community, like being part of a community, social status, care and protection of loved ones, enjoying the food. Like these are things that are built into our biology. Like we enjoy good food. That's what pulled me in there. The need for community, it pulled me in there. And once we understand like what people go for in life and they make the connection, it worked on me. So
Well, that's a great story. I hope that's going to be in the documentary. Is it?
I there's 2 possible interests, and that might be part of it. So you might be pushing me over the edge to put that one in.
I love that because that's very organic. right? This wasn't somebody on the street, saying, "Come here, what are you doing to the animals?" This is an organic process, and that's what I mean. Like with coaching, trust the process, trust and allow. It just happened so organically, where you were called, like this was your calling, and you didn't have to force it or anything. So that's a beautiful story. I think it's very powerful, and it just shows that no one was forcing you. You were on your path. Your little journey was going, and then all of a sudden you realize, wait a minute, what's going on in my life, right?
Hmm.
You were introduced to this newness through
And the big
love
thing
and
was,
people.
yeah, the big thing was I had an open mind and curiosity. Like I wasn't pressured into it. If you're pressured into something, then it's not good. But yeah, the other intro I was going to talk about was just I was curious, like how do we change the world? I was really into personal development, coaching, and I was like, I want to make a massive impact on the world so people are more empowered. So probably we didn't talk about this background, but I wanted to be I wanted to know like how do I make an impact in the world for that side of things, and I was also learning from the growth of the vegan movement. So at the same time, the curiosity on my desire to create an impact in the world with the sense, I guess, the wanting the community and belonging that brought it all together. But one thing you said before, I guess, a lot of people, they feel like discouraged, or you said like trusting in the process. Where one of the things that lit the compassion in my heart during this whole process, the transition, one of my friends, she posted a picture of a sheep on Facebook. There's a fundraiser for medical expenses at a local animal sanctuary. And for some reason, I saw that. It lit the compassion in my heart. And that's the thing that kind of like locked me in on the compassionate side of things. And in her mind, would she know that is one of the things that locked me in, where I eventually started a vegan business with people, served 30,000 vegan meals. I'm filming a documentary, building a movement around this because of one picture she shared on Facebook. So with the people you speak with, they might be frustrated where they don't see the results. If I never told her this, she would never realize how many more instances are there like that, where one person I interviewed for my film, she works as a customer service manager in Dubai. She's like, why are you interviewing me? Like, you interviewed these famous doctors, these politicians, these millionaires. I'm just a normal person that shares a Veganuary campaign with my coworkers at work. And that's it right there. It's those little things that you do. There's a huge ripple effect, and you really don't know what's going to make the biggest difference. So even the little things, if there's so much maybe negativity you could focus on, but if you focus on your actions and the little things, you don't know what's going to come as a result. You might inspire one person who inspires millions, and that changes the world, and it all happened because of you. So that's how I look at it.
That's exciting to think about, but it's true. The ripple effect is true, and you don't know how much of an impact you have. And so to celebrate yourself every day, I see people saying, well, I wish I could do more. Well, let's celebrate what you're doing. Just being alive as a vegan is doing so much. Um, so yeah, it's wonderful. And I was looking at these comments.
Yeah, I was just reading that too.
Yeah, I see Trisha's is saying, hi, Andrew. I've been vegan months now, along with my 2 children and husband. I currently own and operate a vegan childcare program in Parker, Colorado. All of my families that I care for are non-vegan. I'm starting a business to help implement plant-based diet and compassion curriculum into the childcare programs, even non-vegan ones that want to bring in revenue and be able to offer care to more families. Once that is up and running, we will help vegan families find these childcare programs. I have talked to my AV group into bringing the AV Cube to Parker, Colorado for the first time this weekend. Super excited to see how this conservative, non-vegan town responds. That's interesting. Go ahead.
It's been a while since I've been in Colorado. I wonder, Parker, is that in like southeast Denver, or is that up in the mountains? But sorry, just your name looked familiar, so I was Googling it or Facebooking if we were friends yet, but it looks like we have mutual connections. So I was a little bit distracted during the reading.
Oh,
But
yeah, I was thinking Colorado. Well, the first thing I think about Colorado is, wow, I thought that they were very progressive. But I mean, it depends on the town. So, and that's great that Trisha's a very early on vegan, and she hasn't been vegan very long, and she's making a huge impact already, being a leader in her community. and doing and educating her children, and the children are educating at school. So that is the ripple effect that you were talking about, you know.
Hmm. Yeah, it looks
So
like Trisha, you said there's more to that first comment. You had a question. Looks like it was cut off after
oh,
children.
what is the question? Let's see. See, I was thinking that it went down. I was looking for that comment. Let's see. No, it's cut off. Well, yeah, but things are shifting, and it's important to remember that when we do the best we can, we're shifting always. You know, we're changing this narrative, and also just to pay attention to what is working and what's not working. You know,
Hmm.
it's
That's
very
one thing.
important. Go
That's
ahead.
one thing I like about my interviews where like I find like if something's working in the UK, then just amplify that message and maybe it works in the US, maybe it works in Canada, maybe it works in South America. And it's really like bringing different things together because I interviewed one man, Stephen Clark, he's from the Vegan Experience, where he found that the charity fundraising model is broken where pretty much there's two main objections that people don't donate to charities. Number one, there's a lack of full transparency in the process, where sometimes 70% of your donation goes to admin expenses, salaries, etc. And then there's a sales principle. What's in it for me? So if it's a
Mm,
matter of okay, what do I get back from it? And I was actually trying to start a fundraising campaign in the UK with a activist there. And he said all the business owners came back. They said, like, we don't really get anything out of it. Like, we have to put this towards marketing expenses. So lack of transparency and what's in it for me. So what Stephen Clark did is he found a new fundraising model where it's a for-profit social enterprise where everybody must win more than they put in. That's his little tagline where pretty much let's say you spend $40, you buy 30 meals, plant-based meals that go to someone in need. So he distributes it through food charities across North America, but immediately you get access to a discount app where you save more than $40 per month, probably hundreds of dollars potentially on groceries, restaurants, travel, movies, etc., retail. So this way your donation it actually is a net positive on your wallet and then 100% of the 30 meals that you purchase go to the person in need. So it alleviates both of those models. This way, why would people not stay subscribed? They save money, they pretty much earn money out of it. People are getting fed, and the program could grow. So he's doing that in North America. Then I got in contact with an activist from Brazil, where they're tearing down the rainforest there, planting or growing crops for animal agriculture, exporting most of it to China where we're developing a Feeding Brazil First program where I connected him to Stefan, where he's going to try to get that discount app and that new kind of fundraising model, bring that to South America. And this way, like when one thing works in one part of the world, we connect it to another part. And this way, hopefully, they're joining forces together. They're working every week together and creating great things from it. Just I don't see the question from Trisha. I don't know if you want to retype just the question part, just so we could get that answered while we're talking.
I was looking for that too. Yeah. Well, it's great when we bring communities together, and
Hmm.
yeah, definitely paying attention because I do remember when they were talking about the war on drugs. I mean, that was the big old tagline, right? And then drugs went up. The drug
Hmm.
use went up when we had the war on drugs. So I mean, obviously that was counterproductive. And so making sure that what we're doing is not counterproductive, but paying attention. So here it is. I'm having doubts, which I think is normal starting any business, but I'm concerned that childcare providers will be so worried about standing out or the stigma behind veganism that they won't step up to use my services. What are your thoughts or any advice you can lend?
Great question. Let me just reread it in my mind for the first part of it. Great. So I don't have the answer. I just interviewed other people, so don't take this as like gospel or anything. But my general rule of thumb is if you're doing something, there's somebody who did it before you that worked out these issues with the process. So when I'm filming my documentary, there's other documentary producers I spoke with that they kind of guided me through the landmines and the problems and the fears that I had. So I know there's a woman I'm connected on LinkedIn. I think her name's Laura Chetner. She's with I think she's now with the Vegan Society in the UK, where she's working. I think she has a little mission about helping with the educational system with children with veganism in the UK. So I think it's Laura Chetner, CH. I can look it up for you, but
That's right. Laura Chepner. Yes, she
yeah.
does
So
food. She's working with the food for isn't in schools, I think.
mhm. So speaking with people like her, that'd be my best advice. Someone who's already done it, or maybe she connected with other people who have. Where of course there's going to be some type of stigma, but they might found a way around that. And of course, speaking with plant-based health professionals, if it's a medical doctor that have credentials or multiple medical doctors, they have credibility that, let's say, a nutritionist or a health coach might not have. So I don't know if that answers your question, but connect with them, learn from someone who's doing it already, because they're, even if it's one or two people in the world, find them out, and then I see there's potential there. So hope that helps.
And she's saying that's another piece. I'm one of the first to do something like this for childcare programs, which is awesome but scary at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
It is scary. I've started vegan businesses before, other businesses, and just taken that leap in the unknown. And as I'm filming my uh, the animal rights activism portion of the documentary, it's probably a 5-minute segment. And one of the last lines is, if it wasn't for the disruptive activists that stood out and took a leap, like Martin Luther King, Rosa Parks, Malcolm X, we might still be living in a world where racism is acceptable or slavery is still the norm. So it's people like you that step out and make the difference and make these bold moves. That's where the biggest difference comes from. So view it as being empowered to step up as a leader as opposed to being scared. So you have us supporting you. So if you ever want to reach out, we're here.
Yeah, and that's what you said was so true, because I mean, look how long slavery went on and all these other issues, and the women's right to vote, and people would say it's never going to change, it's never going to change. But yes, it did change, but it's with persistence, right? And just keep showing up every day, and the narrative will change and people will get it. It's again that the foods are so addictive, and sometimes we're not thinking. I mean, like, that's scary to people. I mean, I used to love eating ribs. I used to love barbecues, right? And it was, I mean, all that is so addictive, all that fast food junk, it's like sugar and salt and fat layered over and over. And they put in all this stuff to make you addicted. So when we understand that it can be scary for the non-vegan, just like Trisha's talking about being scary with her business, when we can come from a place of compassion and understanding and listening, we can really come together to help each other out. And so definitely, I love what you said, that you recommended that she reach out to other people that have done this before, because in this whole planet there's someone that can help, right?
Mm-hmm. And even if it's someone who did something similar, not the exact same thing, whether someone in the UK, they helped with elementary schools or middle school kids, there's still lessons to be learned from their experience that could be applied to something similar. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Joseph Odika has just had the Veg Fest in Nigeria, and he's really working hard to educate the children in the schools to get that out there. And I think just people aren't aware of the nutritional benefits. I mean, how much all that junk that we're feeding our kids in schools and just in general, that, I mean, the brain health, that when we're really going plant-based, how much that's going to help our children's brains to be alert and to be to want to create and want to and have the capacity for learning, that we're feeding them the nutritional value. I mean, so that's what's so important that Trisha's doing, right? Is if we're not going to get off this junk and be feeding these little babies and children the stuff that their brains need, the food that's going to help them really up their brain power.
Hmm.
That's
It's
crucial.
interesting. Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned that because one person I spoke with, where they're working with a major Ivy League university, I can't say the name what it is yet, but like one of the elite ones, like Yale or up there, where they're working with a committee to try to shift I guess, the meal served there to plant based. And one of the ideas I told her was, what if we view one of the elite universities? This is what is responsible for getting the best doctors, the best lawyers out there, this brain food. This is amazing for cognitive health. People are excelling, performing better. If that's there as the role model, wouldn't all the other universities look up to that? Be like, I want to be elite like that. And when I mentioned those 8 marketing drivers, one of them is to be viewed as like keeping up with the Joneses, like elite, superior. So if they could look up to that, that might encourage other universities to go that way. And that might encourage childcares or schools. Like if it's someone setting the model for that and people look up to that type of thing.
I thought about that too with celebrities. I mean, celebrities
Hmm.
really have a voice and they have a big impact. I just rewatched Joaquin Phoenix his acceptance speech, and I really loved the way he was very graceful about that, kind of putting in that, just kind of planting seeds there without attacking, but saying it's time to step up for, and saying, that about that everyone is against oppression, right? That we want to help lift up this planet and people in the planet. We don't want anyone oppressed. So how can we do better? I love that approach that he had. And it wasn't shaming or judging, it was educational and kind and gentle, just about awareness. How can we do better in all areas? And yeah, because there's a lot of people that are saying, I mean, that thing about, well, let's just say someone that really loves dogs, right? And they just haven't understood yet the connection between the 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 pig and the dog and the whole thing, because of the brainwashing that they were under. And it's hard to break out of those patterns when we were taught this. It's not that they don't love dogs and that they're terrible people. Do you know? um it's just the awareness, they haven't reached it at that level.
Hmm.
So what would you say about that? I mean, someone that's over here sitting next to me and they're telling me how much they love animals and how much they love dogs, and what would you say to them? And that might gain, bring an awareness to this issue that we're talking about.
Definitely. I'm not the best communication getting through, but just referencing what I'm learning from this one woman I'm working with now, where it's about shifting their perspective and maybe making comparison to something they're familiar with.
Mhm.
And then she was reading an article about one prominent animal rights activist says it's okay to eat oysters because they don't feel pain. And then she was like going through a brainstorming exercise, like how to get through to this person so they stop spreading that information to their followers. And it's pretty much like, I don't even know the right words, but like making some type of comparison. Like if an intelligent person and a person who's probably in a coma, medically induced coma, should we just pull the plug on the person in the coma because they have lower brain power than the intelligent human being? No. Okay. So if take that as an example, just because one person is smarter or could feel like better, like feel like emotions easier, we shouldn't take harm that one person. Okay, if you take that person in a coma versus a dog or a cat, what's the difference? They feel. Then take that. Okay, if it's not okay to do that to a dog or a person in a coma, do you know like a baby pig or a pig is like intelligent enough as a 4-year-old child? So should we save the pigs and kill anyone under 3 years old? Well, of course not. And it's like that line of questioning to like get them to see all living beings as equal, not because of intelligence. That's one process we're going through. I don't know if it works because I'm already vegan, already see things that way, but hopefully that's one way to get through. But she's very developing something strong.
Well, that's wonderful. And that's the key, just to try it out and see if it works. I mean, it might work for one person and it might not. That's when
Hmm.
listening is so important to who we're talking to, what's going to work. Somebody might care about the environment and somebody might care about the animals. Somebody might, care about the health. So it's always about really being knowledgeable in all these areas so that we are able to speak on it. Um, and sometimes we get caught in situations where we don't know, and we might not be the best one to speak, like, or maybe that sometimes the best thing is to keep our mouth shut. Like I went to Helen, Georgia last weekend and saw a couple weekends ago and saw the carriage rides, and that makes me so sad. The horses on the pavement, uh, um, and I didn't know what to do. I felt like I should do something, right?
Hmm.
And at that moment, I don't think there was anything I could do. I could. I've tried to talk to them, the people, before, but then I thought maybe the best thing would be go home and start writing letters and doing it that way, instead of really being overcharged with emotion and speaking when it's not going to help, it's going to be counterproductive. And because when I left, I thought, why didn't you do anything?
Hmm.
And sometimes it's better not to act when you're not ready, when you don't have
And
some
there's
a good foundation.
Yeah, and like I said in the beginning, there's always that one tweak or like something you could learn that can make it a lot easier. There's an Instagram account. I think they're Ban Horse Carriages Niagara in Canada, where their whole activism community is about banning the horse-drawn carriages in Niagara Falls, that tourism community. And I think they're learning from, it might be Mexico, where there's like 30 places throughout the world where they already banned the horse carriages. Kind of like we were saying before, learn from someone who already did it. And one of the things is they replaced it with electric buggies. So electric, eco-friendly, like if I think in those instances, that's more economically viable for those companies than like feeding the horse, caring for the horse. Caring for the horse is probably a terrible phrase for that industry, but you know what I'm saying, where pretty much it might be more economically viable for the company. So if they switch to electric, they could see on the cutting edge, they could have that elite status of like, we're ahead of the curve. And this way they take the horses out of the equation. And that might be one way. It might work in Georgia, it might not, but I always go searching for that person who did it and find that one unique little thing that might shift the thought process in the brains of those company owners because they're a business. And if something gets them more profits, gets them more customers, that might be it.
Well, yeah, I love what you're saying. Like, stop. We don't have to act right then. We can go and research and then see. Like, I could even reach out to Helen, that's the city. What I'm seeing is the horses being, really being struggling. And is that the way your city wants to be represented? The little town
Hmm.
of Helen is someone that doesn't care about horses. That there's different ways to go at it. And I love you
Hmm.
bringing this insight to me to reach out and really to do the research and then act. Get ready, like they say, get the fire extinguisher ready before the fire.
Hmm.
So
Definitely.
you're going to be, and then maybe I'm not the right person to talk about it, right? Maybe it's someone else that could speak better. Let me call them and say, hey, I've got something for you here. Like you're saying, the people that are on the ball about the carriage, that's their mission with the carriage horses. Get them to go and speak better about that than myself. So that's really great to have a good supportive community of people we can call on. And it's amazing that you are speaking with all these people, um, to have that support. Like you're able to
Hmm.
pull these great resources, this resourceful information out here for us. And that's what I love about live streams, talking to such knowledgeable vegans, that I'm learning all the time these new methods and what's working and how we can come together as a community and really change the narrative so that the shift we're having a bigger impact in this shift that has got to happen. I know that we
Hmm.
all feel this need. It's got to happen now.
Hmm.
So, what would you say to that? That feeling, like, how do you deal with that feeling of it's got to happen now? You know?
Good question. I've done a lot of inner work for probably entre- since I transitioned from employee to entrepreneur from 2011 going forward. I did a lot of personal development, trying to like work through stuff. So I don't know if I'm the right person to answer at this stage in my life because what I just focus on is what can I do, taking my focus away from the outcome. Where it's like,
Mm,
okay, I could put together this documentary with the goal of inspiring other people to step up and be activists. I could film for 18 months, the next year of my life, raise hundreds of thousands of dollars, put into an amazing film with the goal where it has to be on Netflix. But it's in my control in a sense, but in another sense, it's a little bit out of my control. Like I could do specific things to work towards there. But I know when I'm done with this interview today, I could go into my video editing software, putting together as best I can the activism portion of what I filmed so I could present that to philanthropists to raise money. So focusing on what's in front of me right now, what I'm doing, and kind of detaching from the outcome, where there's a sense of like, okay, there's maybe not caring about the outcome versus more being trusting in the process or releasing it to a higher power, the universe, or whatever your belief system is. Like, just focus on the now, focus on what you could do, detach from the outcome, and just hope that what you're doing is the right thing. And that helps me, I guess, even be more motivated, where I can focus on the actions as opposed to trying to get something years away.
Yeah, you're allowing and trusting the process, and having that inner work, really
Mm-hmm.
working on yourself. So you're coming from a strong foundation. I mean, that's crucial so that we know that we can go to sleep at night without, having a list of these like, well, did I change this person? Did I change this person? Or, without going down that list, just knowing that your actions are in alignment with creating a vegan world. So you can
Mm-hmm.
sleep at peace every night, and knowing that you are doing everything you can, and you and then again, not knowing that you don't know exactly what's going on behind the scenes in people's brains. We just don't know what they're thinking and how they're moving closer to this vegan world.
Yeah.
So
And I guess a lot of like with that question, like because I worked through it, but if you saw me back in 2013, where there's like the veganism activism journey, but then there's my entrepreneurship transition from my employee mindset, where back then it was just I could relate to what you're saying, like in like analysis by paralysis, just like stuck there. I don't know what to do. I want to reach out to this influencer, but like I was too scared to send an email because I was avoiding rejection. I would just like have jump from one idea to another, to another, to another, and just like read all these books without doing anything because I read the books, it gave me that dopamine rush. I didn't take action. And it was a committed journey to work through every single portion of that and just probably tens of thousands of dollars in personal development coaching, self study, all these things. So that's what I love about what you're doing, where you could help people in the vegan community like work through all that. So this like where I am now, 10 years later, I could reach out to probably like a world leader and be like, hey, I'd love to interview you for my documentary without that resistance or feeling inadequate or like not good enough. So the work you do, like I think the world needs that.
yeah, I mean, it's about healing ourselves, right?
Hmm.
That's got to come first. The more we heal ourselves, the stronger we are, and the more we can, that we don't have to have those forced outcomes. No more forcing, but allowing people to come at their own time, like you did. You joined the movement at your own time, and who would have known that was going to happen? It's the
Hmm.
beautiful part of discovery of life, and discovery comes from when we feel safe. If we don't feel safe, we can't discover. So it's just a beautiful process, and it's wonderful that you have that for your background.
Thank you.
So I see that we're running out of time here. Is there anything else you wanted to say? But tell us, just tell us where we can find you, all the viewers that want to connect or know more about this, and anything else that we need to hear.
Definitely. Yeah, I guess anybody who's connected to you on LinkedIn, I'm more active on there. So just, I think you tag me in the post, send me a connection request, message me so we can start talking. On veganworldfilm.com. So veganworldfilm.com, I have a webinar just kind of summarizing some of the things I talked about so far, but that'll add you to an email newsletter. This way, when the documentary is released or when I writing a book in the process with all these lessons, I'll be able to email you there. So that's getting on the email newsletter. That's something I'm trying to build up and stay in communication with the people I interact with. See, Trisha had another comment. Maybe we could
Mhm.
read that. You want to read that
Yeah,
before we go?
will you read it, please?
So Trisha said, I have a really hard time detaching from the visions in my mind of what the animals are going through every day. I post a lot of stuff for my activism on Facebook. And then with doing AV every week, I try not to look at it, but it's super hard not to. Even 3 seconds of seeing that horror scars my mind, being I'm only 5 months into this awakening. My hope is that I will get easier to process and move forward with it. Definitely. So I think one side, I guess those visions, they bring up the fuel for the motivation. But I know this is me speaking from my NLP personal development background, where a lot of times we get too associated with something. So in our internal representation, it's like we're looking through our own eyes. So when I was 14 years old, someone broke into my house when I was home alone with my sister, threatening to kill us, and it was a traumatic event in my life. So when I relive that, I'm reliving that through my own eyes in my internal like visions of it, probably like you were seeing with the slaughter footage. So one technique that helped me is imagine floating out of my body and seeing myself on like a small postcard sized picture. So it's myself, the traumatic scene there, and pushing it further away. And this way it just kind of creates some distance from that unsafe event. I'm not a psychologist, so if it's a really traumatic event, don't follow this approach. But like if you could just kind of like float out of your body in that internal vision, like put it on a postcard, push it away. And there's something called the emotional freedom technique, EFT. So EFT tutorial, you can look up on YouTube. It's a tapping technique. It releases some of the emotions. So if you see the postcard picture, bring up the emotions, you could tap on it. It kind of releases that and gives you new perspective. So I studied neuro-linguistic programming, EFT. There's tools out there. Maybe you have some tools to help Patricia with that, but it's those little things that might help a little bit. So if you ever want to chat, then I could always jump on the call and see if we could talk more.
The EFT, I have a lot of friends that use that, the tapping. And yeah, I think also acknowledging the feelings and sending love to the feelings, really sending love to yourself, being supportive and knowing that, I mean, that this is just part of the human experience, and it's hard, acknowledging that it's hard, really, really sitting in like an energy of compassion. And yes, separating yourself, that instance of that event from you, right? It's not where it's not part of you, but it's something separate. And so you could kind of send love to that event too. I see the event and one thing that really helped me was talking with Bianca, who's on here watching, Bianca de Rus. And she was saying how when the animals pass away, that their spirits are gone, they're back, they're free. So I think I really try to focus on that, that they're going to be free, they're going to be happy, and they're going to be in peace. And that's my focus, because I didn't watch it, but I heard it, Earthlings, the movie, and it was horrible. I started crying, which is not, I mean, of course I cried. I didn't see it. I didn't have to see it. I just heard the horrible things that were going on in the documentary. And I have to just send myself love and peace for that event, and thank God those animals are now free and living. This is what I believe, that they're out away from that torture. And talking to Bianca, who's the animal communicator, she made me feel much better about it. That and other friends too that have seen spirits rise up. Like one of my friends was at the vet, and her little dog had passed away. And she said she saw her dog come out of her little body, and she came out of her little body as a puppy, full of life. And so that's beautiful, that she wasn't sick anymore. And that's what I try to focus on, because that's the only way I can make it. I can't see those images. That's one reason. I cannot, if I'm watching those images, I'm just going to be re-traumatized, and I have to really, really, because I've studied a lot and done a lot of inner work, to really say, okay, I saw that image and I'm focusing on this. I'm shifting. And every time I shift over with mindfulness, it's easier to shift. That's the brain work, training your brain.
It might also be the universe pushing you in a new direction instead of constantly seeing those footage. Maybe the childcare program is what it is. Like when I was in Colorado and just some, I don't say bad things, but like very stressful business transitions, loss of revenue, this and that with my personal development coaching business. It was painful, but it pushed me into the vegan community, into vegan businesses and what I'm doing now. So I'm not saying stop doing the AV. There's EFT, there's timeline therapy, which is another simple technique that might work with it. But yeah, what you said about viewing is the spirits, the animals being free in spirit sense, like I think we're a spiritual group here where we believe that. But for even people that don't, someone said to me, like, don't ask if it's right or wrong, ask if it's useful. So if that's just simply a belief system in your mind and it makes you feel better and more empowered from where you're coming from, that might help as well. But I believe all the things you're saying. So yeah.
Yeah. And that's crucial that we stay in power, and really to listen to our bodies. If we're really being, if something's really causing us pain, to get out of that. We can do activism in different ways, like just to be aware of where is my best place in this movement. Because my best place isn't watching the videos or posting that stuff on Facebook, because it's going to cripple me. And how am I going to help the movement if I'm crippled? I have to take care of myself first.
Definitely.
So, yeah. And so Trisha's saying she's never heard of EFT, but she's going to look it up. Yeah, definitely look it up. I mean, it works. So I'm glad you brought that up, and you have a lot of wisdom, Andrew.
Thank you.
Yeah. And I hope everyone reaches out to you.
For sure. Yeah, just feel free to connect me with anyone on LinkedIn who wants to talk, and just you put my account out there and I'll talk to anyone.
Yes. And Trisha's saying, I'm all about the universe guiding me. And I do think about being pushed in this direction to help me grow so I can truly help the animals. Yes. And you are doing it. She's really doing amazing work. So also make sure that you post in the Facebook group keep us updated about the documentary.
Definitely.
Because we want to know, we want to support you. So yeah. We are here to support you. We're very excited about this. So thank you so much for coming, Andrew. And
thanks for having me. This has been fun. It's really great.
Yeah, it's been wonderful. Thanks everybody for watching. Let us know if you have any questions, post the comments and we'll get them answered. Reach out to Andrew on LinkedIn and we'll be celebrating, when this thing goes, sharing it with the world so people we can have a shift for this planet.
Great. Thanks for having me.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Bye.